Yeah, hello everyone, Evan Reacts here, and welcome back to another video. So yeah, last time when I was reacting to the FNAF movie trailer, I told you about how I watched the final Indiana Jones movie and how it was a good movie. Not the best way to end it for me personally, but still good movie and I liked it. And just yeah, just the other night I was watching a documentary series about ancient Rome, and I decided to watch a archaeology video slash history video, because uh Indiana Jones, you get what I'm trying to say, right? Yeah, you do. So yeah, today I'm going to be reacting to Extra Histories video, Race to Ancient Secrets, about the Rosetta Stone. Okay, let's like and subscribe. And for those of you who don't know what the Rosetta Stone is, it's basically the key to translating ancient hieroglyphics. It's absolutely a priceless treasure for Egyptologists. So, yeah, let's learn about it, shall we?
Alexandria, Egypt, 196 BCE. An artisan taps an inscription onto the stele with his chisel, doing a great service for his pharaoh. You see, his king, Ptolemy V, really needs something to court the priests. For the Ptolemaic dynasty are not Egyptians at all. They're actually Greeks. And for generations, these foreign kings have kept power over Egypt by engaging with the priests of its traditional religion. So this inscription is the Memphis Decree, exempting the priestly class from taxes and from coming to pay homage to him. A gesture the teenage king hopes will steady his throne and prevent another uprising. And the artisan describes the decree in 3 languages: Greek, the language of the Ptolemaic dynasty, Egyptian hieroglyphics for the priests, and Demotic for the common people. But he has no idea that part of this stele, broken and swept away by flood, will one day unlock the language of ancient Egypt. Big shout out to Factor for helping me decode what's for dinner. July 15th, 1799. Fort Julian, outside Rashid, Egypt. Nearly 2,000 years later, French military engineer Pierre-François Boucher is repairing the defenses of an Arab fort.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know and have the misconception that that it was the British who discovered and found the Rosetta Stone, because the Rosetta Stone is in the British Museum. When in reality, it was actually the French who discovered it. More specifically, the French under Napoleon during his Egyptian campaign,
strengthening it against the Ottoman fleet that's expected to arrive within days. A year ago, the French army had invaded Egypt and attempted to set up a colony, but that increasingly looked doomed to failure. Both the Ottomans and British are
Yeah, they at first they thought Egypt would make a good substitute for Haiti in terms of being a agricultural colony. But yeah, that didn't go as well as they hoped it would be.
To attack the French, and the army has to consistently battle internal revolts. During repair work, they find the stone, seemingly used as scrap construction material in an old wall. The engineers immediately bring it to Boucher's attention, as they're supposed to do with any artifact. Because you see, alongside the military campaign, which you can learn about in our Napoleon in Egypt series here, the French expedition also had an academic component. Over 150 so-called savants, scientists, writers, linguists, and other academics have come along, setting up a research institute in Cairo where they study everything from local wildlife to ancient artifacts.
Yeah, and fun fact, the scientific institute that was founded by the savants around that time still exists today, and is a major major headquarters for Egyptology until this day. So yeah, pretty amazing.
Seeing the script on the broken stone, Boucher immediately realized the implications of this find. If this is the same inscription in 3 different languages, it could be the key to finally deciphering ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. So, he sends out a message saying he's found a curious artifact near Rosetta, the French name for Rashid. He then passed the stone to General Monod, transferring it to his tent to be cleaned and the Greek to be translated, while they dug in hopes of finding its missing pieces. But then, as the French army fought off an Ottoman landing at Abu Qir Bay, Bouchard accompanied the 1,700-pound stone to the savant's headquarters, the Egyptian Institute. And it arrived just in time for Napoleon to see it before he ditched the expedition and sailed back to France. In doing so, he left the savants with a deteriorating military situation, alongside a priceless but extremely heavy artifact that they had no way of getting back to France. Yet the information must be spread, especially once they determined the mysterious third language was not Syriac as originally thought, but the Demotic mentioned in classical sources. At first, they tried copying it by hand, but it proved too intricate. They were stuck until a brainstorm. Instead of copying it, why don't they just smear ink on the front and then press it with paper like it was a printing press? It worked. And while the French
Nice, innovative thinking. As they say, work smarter, not harder.
army hauled the stone around even to battlefields, unwilling to leave it unguarded. Prints of the inscription had already reached Paris, which was good because the Rosetta Stone wouldn't. In 1801, General Monod, now in charge of the expedition, signed a surrender.
Yeah, when the British finally defeated the last remaining French forces in Egypt, the French general, this guy's name, who I forgot, agreed to sign a treaty, surrender treaty, saying that they would surrender all Egyptian artifacts and antiquities that they have found throughout the campaign, which included the Rosetta Stone, which was, highly unfavorable to the savants, but this was expected nonetheless. The British also demanded that all of the savants surrender their documents and notes to the British, but then the savants threatened to burn the documents instead of giving them up. So the British allowed them to keep their documents and notes. And I don't know if this is exactly what they quoted, but I believe the savants quoted, if you dare try to take these notes, you will cause the second destruction of Alexandria's library. I don't know if that's truly what they said, but it went something like that. So yeah.
Agreement with the British and the Ottomans. And one of the provisions was,
and the notes and the documents the savants collected would go on to create 37 or 30-something novels called what's it called again? Oh yeah, The Description of Egypt, around the biggest book series of that time.
That all of the artifacts retrieved during the French expedition to Egypt were now spoils of war and the personal property of King George III, especially the Rosetta Stone. In fact, the British were so pleased with its acquisition that they actually painted on the side, "Captured in Egypt by the British Army in 1801. A year later, when King George donated it to the British Museum, he added on the other side, "Presented by King George III. Now, I bet you think you know how this goes from here. They matched the Greek with the hieroglyphics and boom, ancient Egyptian deciphered, right? Well, turns out, not actually. Even matching the hieroglyphic characters with the Greek, no one could make heads or tails out of them. But that also wasn't really their fault. See, the Europeans were missing a key piece of the puzzle, and had been for 2,000 years. Europeans had been trying to figure out how to read hieroglyphics for centuries, but the only instructions on how to do so came from ancient Greek and Roman writers who insisted that they were ideographic, using pictures to indicate concepts. And while that was true sometimes, they could also be phonetic.
Eden has a creamy taste and milk vitamins. Di tinitipid ang pagmamahal.
Indicating sounds the same way alphabetic languages do. And that misunderstanding was inherited all the way to the 1800s. Medieval Muslim researchers tried to crack the code and failed, though two did discover that some lined up with Coptic, a descendant of ancient Egyptian. Then later, when Renaissance alchemists attempted to read the texts, hoping to learn ancient spells, healing practices, and other wonders, they had even less luck. And it wasn't until...
Yeah, another problem with trying to translate, not just ancient Egypt, but ancient languages regardless, is because ancient Egyptian is not like modern Egyptian. Like, it's like how medieval English transformed into, modern English. It's not gonna be the same. There are some words that going to evolve over time. So yeah, it's gonna be very hard trying to translate this.
1814, that an English polymath named Thomas Young made the first real progress. Young, a medical doctor, scientist, and linguist, at first just busied himself with translating the demotic section of the Rosetta Stone. However, after a conversation with another researcher who suggested that the Ptolemies, being Greek, might have written their names phonetically in hieroglyphics, he decided to jump sections. Finding the royal names should be easy enough, he reasoned, since it had been suggested that they were always in a circle that we now know as a cartouche. And sure enough, he found the name Ptolemies. Upon further study, Young found 80 similarities between the hieroglyphic section of the stone and the demotic one. But that is where his work stalled, as he incorrectly assumed that hieroglyphics were logographic, that each symbol represented a word, like Chinese or Japanese, and that only the Greek names would have phonetic equivalents. Still, that discovery made Young's name, and soon researchers all across Europe were writing to him, including a French prodigy named Jean-François Champollion, who, quite annoyingly, kept asking for better quality prints of the stone's inscriptions. But to be clear, he wasn't just some irritating student. Champollion was a far more talented linguist than Young, and crucially, he spoke Coptic. Actually, he'd been working on and off on his own attempt to translate hieroglyphics, believing that they were, in fact, phonetic. However, being in France, he had to work off print copies of the stone, and he likely never even saw it in person. But he didn't just use the Rosetta Stone prints, for there were more drawings of hieroglyphic inscriptions and artifacts coming out of Egypt every year. For example, in 1815, wealthy Englishman William John Banks was touring Egypt when he fell in love with a 22-foot-tall, 6-ton obelisk and decided, man, that would just really look great in my front yard. It also had inscriptions in hieroglyphics and Greek.
Yeah, you have to admit an obelisk or something similar to an obelisk would look really great in front of like a manor or something. You have to admit that.
So he hoped it would be a second Rosetta Stone. So he did what anyone would do. Hired an Italian circus strongman to coordinate hauling it back to his estate in Dorset. The rich, man, they're just like us. Meanwhile, Champollion had been hammering away, using his earlier work on Demotic and knowledge of Coptic to reconstruct theoretical cartouches of common Egyptian royal names. His hope was that these cartouches, should he find them in inscriptions, would gradually unlock more hieroglyphic characters. This he did while also feuding with rivals and periodically going into exile for his continued support of Napoleon. Then, when Banks sent him a print of the inscriptions on his obelisk, Champollion stopped dead. There, on the side, was his reconstruction of Cleopatra. He went into a feverish blitz of work and began to realize that Egyptian hieroglyphics were a mix of ideographic and phonetic characters. And it was 1822 when it all clicked. He read the name Thutmose from an imported inscription, then checked it against the Rosetta Stone. He then bolted from his desk, ran down the street to his brother's house, and supposedly screamed, "I've got it!" before collapsing in a dramatic faint. Young and Champollion would war over credit for the rest of their lives, with Young claiming that Champollion did not acknowledge his work, while Champollion said that the methodical Young had merely recognized similar characters without reading them. Both went on to withhold research from the other.
Yeah, another thing about researching is you can't say the one guy finally discovered something. It's because of all of these people and researchers that we were finally able to translate ancient hieroglyphics. It's not just that one person was like, ooh, so this means this and this means this, and yeah, he's solely responsible for translating it. But no, it's a group of people studying each other's research, trying to find links, and perfecting that research. Take the Thomas Edison, for example. Sure, he invented the light bulb, but he didn't invent the concept of making a light bulb. There are many other people before him trying to invent an electronic light light source, and Thomas Edison just took their research and perfected it so as to be able to invent the light bulb. He didn't invent the concept, he just invented the product of that research. So yeah.
And in the polarized environment of post-Napoleonic Europe, who a researcher supported was heavily influenced by patriotism. But Champollion's system, despite what some English academics claim, worked.
Ang Jollibee Chicken Joy, crispy-licious, juicy-licious, Philippines' best tasting.
And in 1829, he fulfilled his lifelong dream of traveling to Egypt. Once there, he found a vanished world begin to speak to him. Using his developing dictionary and grammar system, he read the words of gods and priests off temple walls. He uncovered kings whose names had not been spoken in a millennia, and in the papyrus scrolls preserved in the arid deserts of Upper Egypt, he found the words of the common people. Even though he'd never laid eyes on it, the Rosetta Stone had unlocked Egypt. And while I would never suggest that my discovering the secret of something like, say, great meals ready super fast was ever on par with the Rosetta Stone, I also can't eat the Rosetta Stone. Wait.
Yeah, that's sponsor time. So yeah, this was a really informative, formative video. I loved it, and yeah, you can probably already tell that I'm a huge history fan. So yeah, I really like this video. And I don't really have anything else to input, so yeah, if you like this video, please hit that like and subscribe. Check out my Facebook page, link is in the description. So will the link to the original video by Extra Credits / history down below. Go check them out, they make amazing content. I also recommend you check out their music and instrumentals for their history videos. They have some great soundtracks, like for their Napoleon in Egypt series. Their music and soundtrack for that was amazing. Anyway, that's all for today. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.